دعاءه بالخير وكان الإنسان عجولا. وجعلنا الليل والنهار آيتين فمحونا آية الليل وجعلنا آية النهار مبصرة لتبتغوا فضلا من ربكم ولتعلموا عدد السنين والحساب وكل شيء فصلناه تفصيلا. وكل إنسان ألزمناه طائره في عنقه ونخرج له يوم القيامة كتابا يلقاه منشورا اقرأ كتابك كفى بنفسك اليوم عليك حسيبا. وكل إنسان ألزمناه طائره في عنقه ونخرج له يوم القيامة كتابا يلقاه منشورا اقرأ كتابك كفى بنفسك اليوم عليك حسيبا. من اهتدى فإنما يهتدي لنفسه ومن ضل فإنما يضل عليها ولا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى كنا معذبين حتى نبعث رسولا وما كنا معذبين حتى نبعث رسولا وإذا أردنا أن نهلك قرية أمرنا متر فيها ففسقوا فيها فحق عليها القول فدمرناها تدميرا وأهلكنا من القرون من بعد نوح وكفى بربك بذنوب عباده خبيرا بصيرا وكم أهلكنا من القرون من بعد نوح وكفى بربك بذنوب عباده خبيرا بصيرا صدق الله العظيم.
Sadaqallahul Adzim, Sadaqallahul Adzim, Sadaqallahul Adzim. The righteous God with all His word. Thank you very much for Shaykh Deeb. It was very beautiful voice. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And before we start, I would like to let Ustadz Ahmad as the director of the Madina Institute Indonesia to give his brief welcoming speech now. Time is yours, Ustadz Fatur Rahman.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udzu billahi min syururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina may yahdihillahu fahuwal muhtad wa may yudlil falan tajida lahu waliyyan mursyida. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la syarikalah wa asyhadu anna sayyidana wa nabiyyana wa maulana Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam. Amma ba'du. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. In this beautiful and mubarak month of Ramadan, we have such beautiful day, which in our talk show today, so there are some such inspirational speaker in front of us, Shaykh Abdallah Deeb as founder of Itqaan Institute, and also my brother Shaykh Imam Ahmad Deeb as Imam in Islamic Center Greater Toledo, and also my beloved brother Dr. Hafidz Mohamed Ameen Ali. Alhamdulillah alamin. Thank you so much for Shaykh Abdallah Deeb. I know you are so busy, but you give your support and helping through your time and knowledge to be speaker in this talk show. We feel so honored, MashaAllah. May Allah give healthy and long life so we can learn from you in the future. Inshallah, I'm grateful for that. Jazakumullah khairul jaza. And for my teacher and brother, my brother Imam Ahmad Deeb, thank you for helping Madina Institute Indonesia for make this talk show happen. Alhamdulillah, Allah give us opportunity to meet again, even through only in the virtual version, but still can take lesson and knowledge from your ocean of knowledge, inshallah. And for my inspiration brother, Dr. Hafidz Muhammad Ameen, Ali, I have such beautiful experience with you when we are together. You are so brilliant and very tawadu. Alhamdulillah, today we can still connecting and take knowledge, ilm from you today. Especially with medical perspective, inshallah, will give us more knowledge and give us another perspective. Jazakumullah ahsanul jaza, and thank you so much for Madina Institute Indonesia and team who gives the idea and assist this talk show to be happen in this beautiful day, and also our partner Tebuireng Online and Yayasan Cantrika Foundation who give us opportunity to make collaboration in this amazing talk show. I hope this talk show will give us a lot of benefit and inspiration. And through this discussing, we will learn how to wise to facing this situation and take the hikmah of this pandemic, and hopefully in the end of the day make us more closer and love to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala and follow our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That's all of us. That's all from me. Thank you so much. Jazakumullah ahsanul jaza. Wallahul muwaffiq ila aqwamit thoriq. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Ustadz Abdul Rahman, for your welcoming speech. That's very helpful to us to understand what's the objective of these discussions. And now I would like to introduce our online audience today. The first one is Al-Mukarram Shaykh Abdallah Deeb. So Shaykh Abdallah Deeb is an Imam and teacher of the religious science in 1982. If I'm not mistaken, take this information. He graduated from Abu Nur Institute in Damascus, Syria, at a young age, and currently holds one of the shortest sanats in the world for teaching Quran. And Shaykh Abdallah Deeb memorized the Quran at the age of 16 and became world-renowned Qari at the age of 18. And we have witnessed his beautiful voice here just now. And now he is working as an Imam and Quran teacher in various major cities, including Orlando, Florida, Dallas, Texas, Cincinnati, Ohio. And he's a senior scholar and co-founder of Itqaan Institute and currently resides in Toledo. And second speaker is Imam Ahmad, which is the son of our Grand Shaykh Abdallah Deeb. Imam Ahmad is the Imam and religious director at the Islamic Center of Greater Toledo. Imam Ahmad Deeb received his degree in psychology at the age of 19. But after doing several community services, his interest of study changed to the Islamic studies, which brought him to South of Africa to learn about Usuluddin or Islamic studies. And I believe that he is a young, enthusiastic man. He is currently active in community service. Important. He took care of Michigan, and he also spent a year helping to develop an unintentional community in Aleppo. He also often travel across countries for doing community service. Okay. And the third one is Dr. Hafidz Muhammad Amin Ali. Uh, Again, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Muhammad Amin Ali comes from Durban and currently works in the medical field in Cape Town. He is specializing in anesthesia medical field and graduated from Madina Institute with Ijazah Amah from Shaykh Muhammad bin Yahya An-Niwawi. And he get house ijazah in Shamil from Shaykh Niwawi and Shaykh Samir Anas. And he is also a lifelong student of the Habibiyah Sufi Astana in Westfield with Ijazah Maulana Abdur Rauf Sofi. So with these inspiring speakers, we hope that we can get the new insight, the new knowledge, the new experience from them to be learned in our discussion today. I would like to start my questions firstly to Dr. Hafidz Muhammad Amin Ali, I think. As Imam Ahmad Deeb asked me to first begin with Dr. Muhammad Amin Ali first, then I would like to ask the question to him first. Okay, this is a basic question, I think. From the medical perspective that you have been experts in this field, how is the up-to-date condition in South Africa now? And I heard that you are now struggling handling many of COVID-19 suspected patients in the hospital which you work there. So how is the current condition there? Can you give some information there?
Alhamdulillah, I'm quite lucky to work in the level 4, which is the highest level hospital in the Western Cape, and that is a pretty skilled hospital, and which has positives and negatives. The positive part of it is that everyone that's infected with COVID-19 doesn't really come to us. It will just be the sickest of the sick patients that really need respiratory support, that can't breathe, that need ventilators, oxygen, that kind of thing, that will really come to us. The drawback of that is that most of the patients that are admitted specifically for COVID-19 at critical care will be very sick, requiring ventilation, life support, and those kinds of things. As a result of that, we really get to see the sickest of the sick patients, and it is on the increase at the moment. I think the government did very well initially with the first phase of the lockdown in terms of trying to slow the spread of COVID-19 and help the government and the health facilities get up to speed, gather the equipment, prepare personal protective equipment for the health staff, and try and mobilize resources and have an allocation so that everyone is not swarming sort of one place at the same time. And now that the lockdown in South Africa is being eased and the spread which is going to happen is starting to increase. I mean, at the moment, we're sitting on just over 17,200 confirmed cases of COVID-19, of which, alhamdulillah, almost 8,000 have completely recovered. But a lot of them, we do have quite a lot of ICU patients at critical care admitted with COVID-19, requiring ventilation. So we're now starting to see very sick patients, and it's really taking a toll on everyone at the moment.
Okay, so you said that the case confirmed now increase in Cape Town, right? So how is the society's response in Cape Town towards this pandemic? Do they strictly obey the regulation from the government, or they just ignore it or something like that?
I mean, there's no running away from the fact that Cape Town is far ahead of the rest of the country in terms of the positive cases that we have. In that the Western Cape has 10,035 confirmed cases at the last count, whereas the next province behind us is Gauteng, and they're sitting at 2,343. So we're some 8,000 cases ahead of the province before us. And some reasons have been postulated for this, not all of them being behavioral. We have to understand that among the first cases to be discovered or to be known in South Africa were in the Western Cape. And because of that, that sort of spread will be at a curve compared to other provinces. There are behavioral aspects in Cape Town where all of the regulations of the lockdown aren't being obeyed as they are with other provinces. And I think the response to trying to curb the spread of COVID-19 in the Western Cape particularly has to be multifaceted. It's not just one aspect of the regulations not being obeyed. As for the regulations themselves, people try where they can. You're not going to get global adoption of absolutely any policy anywhere. And I think that adoption varies from area to area in the Western Cape, depending on people's education, depending on sort of how that message is being portrayed into the community specifically. And what's really undoing a lot of efforts that the government and the global response is making at the moment is false information, rumors, and outright nonsense that's just been spread on social media with regards to people saying that the response is unjustified, that it's not really necessary, that the virus isn't as bad as people think it is, and other conspiracy theories that have no foundation are sort of undoing that. We are seeing that effect as well.
Yeah, it sounds that it's really like in Indonesia, I think, how people, how the social media escalates the worry of the people here by bringing conspiracy theory and some things like that, and it makes us focus to the COVID-19. But and how about the Muslims community there, Dr. Ameen? We know that during Ramadan, it gives a different sense of Ramadan, different nuance of Ramadan in this middle of pandemic. Can you give information to us?
Yes, as you know, CD, and I'm sure this is the case with most of the Muslim communities throughout the world, in Indonesia, in South Africa, and particularly in Cape Town as well, Ramadan has been very much a community time. It's been a time of people getting together around iftar, for Taraweeh, for Qiyamul Layl, people getting together in other gatherings of adhkar, of nasiha, and a lot of community sharing, charitable efforts and things like that. And a lot of that simply could not happen this year, which has been a bit of a damper on people's spirits. And a lot of people have sort of tried to get around that with regards to other formats of engaging people, education, going onto online platforms, just to sort of give people spiritual boosters and just keep people motivated in a sense. And I think people have got to have gotten to experience a different aspect, or a different shade, or a different dimension of Ramadan, with being at home, being alone, being isolated, which has its positive aspects as well. I mean, that's not taking away from the fact that we lose that benefit of community integration, which is a part of the Sunnah and is encouraged. And not getting to mix with people does have that disadvantage, but Khalwa has its advantages as well. And people that have been able to isolate themselves and disconnect from everything, right? Not just being isolated from community, but being able to quiet their minds and reconnect with their spirituality and reconnect with their purpose in life, with Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and rekindle that spirit within their families, teaching their spouses, teaching their close families that they are isolated with, teaching their children. And that has had a positive aspect as well. So on a personal level, those are the sort of things that have happened. On a community level, people by and large in the Muslim community, I mean, there have been aberrant factions that have tried to do things or motivate for things which the general Muslim community wasn't really on board with, in terms of reopening the mosques and things like that. But by and large, the Muslim community in this respect, with regards to the regulations of not congregating, of not opening the mosques, of not doing all of those things, have abided by the regulations of the state. And a lot of people have really gone out of their way, not only in Ramadan, but even before Ramadan, once we started to see the COVID-19 crisis, people have really, as the Muslim community has, I mean, alhamdulillah, we're quite fortunate in South Africa. My esteemed colleague and teacher, Shaykh Ahmad, has pointed out that not every country in the world is fortunate enough to have awqaf. And we in South Africa do. We have very good regulations that allow us to have non-government organizations that are non-charitable, that can, sort of channel these funds of the Muslim community and allocate them not only to the Muslim community, but the wider community at large. There was a statement put out on the 19th of April by an organization that was formed called the South African Muslim COVID-19 Response Task Team, which sort of acted as an for other Muslim organizations, which up until that point, which was a month ago, had expended some 55 million rands in terms of social welfare to the various communities and in various forms. And there was an initiative by the Islamic Relief Foundation as well, which pledged 185 million to fight COVID-19, not only nationally, but globally as well, in the form of providing sanitation kits, portable X-ray machines, and other necessary equipment to less privileged communities throughout the world to help the fight of COVID-19.
Okay, yeah, that's very I do agree that by the emerging of this COVID-19 during Ramadan, we can take so much wisdom instead of we only focus on the negative sides of this pandemic. We can be more engaged with our family. We can be more being close to the Allah Subhanahu wa Taala and so on. And now I would like to move to Imam Ahmad Deeb and our Grand Shaykh Abdallah Deeb. I'm really interested about Itqaan Institute. I think that's a good learning for us in this discussion. That what is the motivation
be reconnecting with some old teachers and mentors and friends, mashallah. Itqaan Institute was an institute that my father and I kind of founded to focus on master teaching in Qur'an, is to, inshallah, through Quranic recitation and the mastery of Quranic recitation. And again, like the words mastery, there's part of a su'adab in saying that. No one will ever be a master of Qur'an, right? But what we mean by that is making sure that you have impeccable itqaan. That's what the word itqaan itself means, precision, perfection, mastery. And, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he tells us in an authentic hadith, he tells us that whoever does something, let them do it with itqaan. Okay? فَلْيُتْقِنَهُ. Whoever seeks to do any action, let them do it with precision and perfection. This is a beauty mark of our deen and of Muslim civilization that I pray we don't lose. I don't want to be one of those people that say we've lost all of this and everything is bad, because I don't believe in that. But we pray that we never lose this understanding of itqaan. And what is most important is having itqaan with the most important thing in your life, which is the Qur'an. There is nothing more important than your relationship with the Qur'an. And something that troubled me, which kind of was the impetus to, launching something world scale, inshallah, with my father, was that we spend a whole bunch of money on our Netflix subscriptions. We spend a whole bunch, we spend thousands of dollars to make sure that we and our children get into the best schools, and we make sure that we have the right tutors, and we spend so much money. And yet, for the stuff that actually matters, which is our relationship with God's book, we want to pay you know, $3. We want to pay two. We want it all for free. You know, this is the common issue, is that, you know, one time I had a beautiful brother. He's like, you know, shouldn't all knowledge of the deen be for free? I said, absolutely. Go establish an endowment, make sure the scholars are taken care of, and you can have it all for free. But until then, right, we have to make sure that the scholars are honored. And so, just in conclusion, Itqaan seeks to do really a few things. The first is provide instruction in the Quran only from the greatest masters of the world, okay? And I say world not because I want to make it bigger than it is. It's because we're purposely seeking out all the scholars from around the world to be able to support them and give them, inshallah, a wider audience that they deserve, okay? Because they are the pillars of our community, okay? Secondly, we want to revive the tradition of sanad, that you don't just learn anything from anyone. That knowledge has a methodology and knowledge has a chain of transmission that is important for both inward and outward, right? It's for barakah, but also to make sure that the knowledge you're getting is from an expert. So reviving expertise through sanad. And then lastly, we wanted to hopefully, through having teachers that embody the Quran, revive the idea that the Prophet ﷺ was not someone who just recited the Quran. He was the walking Quran. And so it's important for us to learn Quran from those who embody it, not just are able to recite it beautifully like my father, and mashallah. I didn't get all the genes, so don't ask me to recite. But that's kind of the rough idea of Itqaan. We have subscriptions that people sign up for, self-catered, you know, curated programs. So every single student has a teacher's assistant with the Shaykh that makes sure that they're on progress, that they have exactly what they need. And it's all custom based. So, you know, that's, may Allah give us tawfiq, and hopefully with your du'as, it'll be successful and scholars will be supported.
Ameen, 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 ameen. I hope that Itqaan Institute is going to be bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's very interesting because how you organize this institute is very professional. I guess that. I'm just curious about how the student can access the learning from the master. Do they get it by online through your platform, or they meet each other in a masajid or something like that? Imam.
Of course, thank you. That's a really important question. It's online instruction, always live, never recording, always live, one-on-one instruction. We offer group classes as well. But yeah, so it's live online instruction. And, you know, part of getting an ijaza, which again, I don't like using words like this in case people haven't been familiar, but I know all of mashallah Indonesia know the term, you know, the idea of actually getting a license. And it's a beautiful process. And so it's important to actually have some physical presence with the teacher. So one of the things we do is try to facilitate, no matter where people are, for them to come and actually towards the end of their learning, and by the end, I mean towards getting a license, an ijaza, a certificate, that they sit with the master teacher for a little while, inshallah, do their khatam, right? At the minimum one juz, in order to get that certificate. But for the most part, it's online, live instruction via the most popular product in the world, mashallah, Zoom. So yeah.
Oh, that's very amazing. Yeah, I hope I haven't never found this similar platform like Itqaan Institute in Indonesia. I don't know, maybe I haven't known yet, but I think it is very good to be adopted by Indonesian Muslim. So since this pandemic changed all of our aspect of life, all of education in Indonesia itself is going to online fully, and we slowly leave the offline way, the conservative way of education. I think this is very suitable to be adapted in our education system by Muslim society in Indonesia. Thank you very much. It's very inspiring. And I would like to ask a similar question to Dr. Ameen Ali about the current condition in USA, specifically in Orlando that you live there. How is the current condition about the pandemic, and how Muslim society there get affected by government policy?
So, inshallah, I mean, mashallah, it's not so different than what's happening all over the world. I'm from Orlando. We moved there. We moved out. We live in Ohio now. This is America is a continent, so I don't expect you to know any of the states. But it's a different state in the middle. And what the state that we're in now is been very, very proactive. So proactive that I don't know if this is a good thing, but they're actually starting to lift some of the stay-at-home orders next week. So retail stores are going to be opening next week. A lot of things are going to start opening next week. And, you know, again, this is Ohio is going to be one of the first places maybe in the world, or definitely in America, where we're going to see potential impacts of that. Is this a good idea? Was it a good decision? Should we have waited? California has extended their stay at home all the way until after July, right? And at least in Los Angeles. So I think what's happening now is there's a awareness of the economic crisis that's causing up most of the discussion, and that's what's creating, I think, a lot of these unfound conspiracy theories. Because people, you know, when they're constricted economically, they're losing their homes, they're losing their jobs, they can't actually afford to put food on the table. Well, we're going to have to find ways to cope. And unfortunately, one of those ways has been conspiracy theories that have undermined the impact of COVID-19. But I believe this is what we're going to see very soon, and we're seeing now is conversations around the economic crisis that are causing a lot of states to release or lift stay-at-home orders, potentially at a time we're not ready for. It may spiral out, but Allahu Alam, this is what's happening now, at least where I live.
I do agree. That's very interesting statement from you. I think that when people being insecure about their economic, their safety, and their future life, the conspiracy theory comes to be valid, to be credible, to be well considered by them, to be believed. But I believe that from the medical perspective, like Dr. Ameen works there, some of the doctors, some of the medical staff absolutely reject the existence of conspiracy theory. Is it right, Dr. Ameen?
Well, I suppose, look, with regards to conspiracy theories, I don't believe in giving anything any credence unless there is irrefutable proof of it, which is the first thing. The second thing with regards to medical staff, and you know, I can tell you this firsthand, is people in the medical field, especially frontline workers, are so busy with such tangible stuff like is this patient I'm treating an asymptomatic carrier of COVID-19? Am I going to get it from this person? Am I going to get so sick that I'm going to need a ventilator? Will there be a ventilator available for me? Will my family people get it? You know, it's these real life concerns where our colleagues are busy getting COVID-19, and there are young people that are dying, right? The risk is lower, alhamdulillah, in younger, healthier people, but it's not impossible that as a young, fit and healthy person, you will contract COVID-19 and la samahallah, a severe form of that. So people are so busy with these real things that, healthcare professionals simply don't have the time for intangible things like conspiracy theory, which is why I think, a lot of them just dismiss it outright. I think there are certain things that, might have credence. We simply, I think also it's an unhealthy approach to just sweep everything under the carpet with a blanket approach and risk perhaps throwing the baby out with the bathwater. But this is kind of the mindset of healthcare professionals, which simply doesn't have the space at this point in time for anything that isn't irrefutable.
And I'm really aware in the academia there is a debate between the position of religion and religion and science itself, because I believe that this pandemic is brings the hikmah from Allah to bridging between religion and science. And we have known that maybe you are aware too, Dr. Amin Ali, that there is a debate about these two fields. Some say maybe that the only way to solve this problem of pandemic is only lays on the scientific approach, while the religions itself, the religious people itself always confirm that this is the God's Allah faith to us, and only God that want to take off this pandemic from the earth. And we as the good Muslim, how we should be fair to treat these two different fields.
Stevie, I'm quite lucky in that most, if not all, of my teachers have schooled an inclusive approach to this thing that some people see as a dichotomy. And Alhamdulillah, because of that, for me, these matters cause no confusion at all. And I'll try and explain that, because I have come across this problem, like you're saying, that a lot of people are confused by this, because it appears to be two conflicting things as a sort of dichotomy, where you have one on the one hand and one on the other. And perhaps one of the biggest proponents of this was Dr. Maulana Fazl Rahman Ansari, rahimahullah, in the 70s. Who at that point already saw, and he was a master, not only a theologian, not only a master spiritualist, psychologist, a homeopath, but he was also a professor in philosophy, which sort of allowed him to grasp the intricacies of these problems and get to the root of what's causing confusion for a lot of people today. And he always taught that there's no such thing as a dichotomy. There's no such thing as a division between secular and religious knowledge, or secular and religious approach. Very much like what Imam al-Ghazali teaches in the Kitab al-Ilm, which is the first book of Ihya al-Ulum. And so if we adopt this inclusive approach, remember, I think it was Imam al-Suyuti who said, Sidi Ahmed, you can perhaps correct me on this. I think it was him who said, al-ilmu ilman, ilmu al-abdan, thumma ilmu al-adyan. Right? The most important branches of knowledge are two. One is the knowledge of the body, and the other is the knowledge of the deen. And those two come back to a central source, right, which is the Qur'an, by Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who didn't create differentiation. Remember, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he taught remedies as well. He taught medicine. He taught the spiritual approaches, asking Almighty Allah to help us. And the point, if I had to take this entire discussion and narrow it down to a single point, which gives me that clarity. It is the understanding of Tawheed, which I've gotten from my teachers, that knowledge, shifa, and intervention are asbab for the acts of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who said, وَإِذَا مَرِضْتُ فَهُوَ يَشْفِينِ. When I am sick, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't seek help from the doctor. Job, right? It means so right, go to the doctor, have that aqidah, that knowledge, as is taught to us by our teachers, that that cure that we are getting from the doctor is not the doctor's last cure.
Yeah.
And if we have that approach, right, then it doesn't negate going to the asbab, right? And so then the scientific approach of trying to find a cure, which must be there, right, which is in keeping with the sunnah of taking asbab, right, is seen as Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's cure manifesting in creation, then that scientific quest then doesn't become at loggerheads with the spiritual approach of making dua, which can be done concurrently. I don't know if I explained that as clearly as I would have liked to, but I think that if we consider the medical approach as the cure of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that confusion can go away completely, and Allah knows best.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, I do agree with that. I would like to hear from Sayyidi Ahmad. How is your response? How is your perspective on this? Maybe in the Quran there is a justification or the guidance for Muslim to face this pandemic or so on and so forth. Any commenter?
Yeah, I honestly, there's not much I can add. Shaykh Ameen really beautifully explained it. I think what we have to do is recognize that one of the questions that usually comes up in times like this is God punishing? You know, is God punishing us? And I think the mere fact of asking this question, we've missed the point. That we have to recognize every single thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestows upon us is a challenge for our faith and a challenge for the process of refining ourselves, a test, right? I don't usually use the word test, but it's a test. And what Shaykh Brown, may Allah preserve him, one of my teachers, he says, you know, what matters most is looking at what made us, what are the lessons therein for us. When we had to close the masajid, for example, you know, people were in uproar, literally. Until this day, people are shocked. How can you not have the masjid open for Jummah? How can you even be a Muslim? You know, this is like, it was just insanity that you would close the masjid for Jummah. And while this heartbreak and this uproar is justified, and that, of course, if your heart doesn't break that the masajid are closed, there's something wrong, and you need to work on that. You're sick too, and you need to work on that. It's an illness. May Allah cure us. But what we need to recognize, I think, two things that we really, really learn from this is that, you know, what is taqwa? What is our commitment to God? How do we frame our commitment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? One thing I asked was that if we're really upset at the masajid being closed, for example, this test, are we upset because God's mosques have been closed? Or are we upset because we hate being tested? Are we upset because now it's inconvenient for us to worship Allah in a way that we're not used to find other means of connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And this is why I said the term taqwa. You know, taqwa is literally the objective for the Muslim, for the believer. That is your objective in life. And how is taqwa described? Imam al-Ghazali says it's inward submission, outward submission, and a communal component. But what's most important here to understand about all of this in regards to taqwa is that taqwa isn't about worshiping God in the way that you like all the time. that one of the definitions of taqwa is that, right, you're about to enter a thorny bush and you know, move up your thobe or your clothes so that they don't get torn up. Okay, we always talk about that in terms of, okay, being afraid that the thobe is going to get torn. What is the symbol and the metaphor of the bush? That's the test of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Allah on purpose places the bush there. That He will make sure that there are speed bumps, that there's going to be obstacles in the way, because He wants us to learn how to maneuver around them. with akhlaq al-Muhammadiyya, with the Muhammadan characteristics, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not bulldoze through them. You know, there's an obstacle, I gotta go into the masjid. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing you. So I think that's the first one. And I think secondly, this pandemic has taught us a lot. And we're gonna write books on this. History is there's gonna be so many books written on this from all types of scholars. But what it's really shown us, the impact and the lack of awareness that we have in our impact to other people around us. Right now, you're like washing your hands, you're making sure like you don't touch people, you don't like, social distancing, right? It's shown us that, we cannot continue as individualistic consumers and call ourselves believers. That we actually have to live. The way we're living now is closer to Islam than we've ever lived. Because now we're aware and cognizant. How am I going to impact my fellow human being around me, right? Al-Muslimu man salima al-Muslimuna min lisanihi wa yadihi. That the Muslim, the true Muslim, is the one who all Muslims and all people are safe from their tongue and their hand. And so I think these are two lessons that if we really try to take from this as a spiritual perspective, it can help us, inshallah, when all of this ceases, in attaining what we want to attain, which is taqwa and closeness to God and, some felicity and enjoyment in this life.
Yeah, thank you. That's very wonderful. That's very good question, because I give you my first question, then you give the answer for my second question at the same time. Thank you very much. I just want to say, I just want to ask a question for the next, actually, about this pandemic give us the another hikmah, which is solid, the sense of humanity and solidarity as the Muslim, right? It proves us that Islam should be the religion which is rahmatan lil alamin, which should be useful for the others. And this pandemic teaches us about humanity and solidarity, not only ukhuwah Islamiyah, but ukhuwah bashariyah. Is it right, Ahmad?
Absolutely. This is it. You hit the nail on the head. There's nothing I have to say.
And this is my another question, because you have answered my previous questions directly, even before I asked you. You are now holding a degree of psychology. How do you describe the relation between religiosity in a person give the positive impact to his psychology in facing this pandemic? I mean, this is a linearity between religiosity and the psychological aspect in an individual.
Yeah, this is an excellent question. Imam al-Ghazali, he tells us that, al-ilmu يعني بغير عمل جنون, صح? والعمل بغير علم لا يكون. That, knowledge without application is insanity. And action and deeds without knowledge, it won't, it's not something that can even exist. It basically dissolves into thin air. And the reason I mention that is because I have a degree in psychology, alhamdulillah. Actually, today I graduated with my master's in Islamic studies. Today is the day I got the yeah. We had a virtual commencement, which was subhanallah, this is the world we're in. It was really interesting and strange experience. But no amount of knowledge will do you anything without application. And part of application is experience, is being in the world. One of the things that I find so incredible about the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is that he was constantly in the cave before revelation. He was constantly meditating and secluding himself. When revelation came, he never went back to that cave. And that is a very important insight for us, is that it's not enough, even though the first revelation was Iqra, it's not enough to seclude ourselves into degrees and sciences and into books. you have to engage with your people, right? And Shaykh Ameen made this point earlier. You have to, you know, a lot of people were saying, oh, now this is gonna be the best Ramadan because, you know, it'll be with you and Allah. And I think, you know, that's a little insensitive. No, you know, there's a community component, mukhalata, there's a mixing that is essential to our deen. And it is through that mixing that we learn what you mentioned. You know, what is our relationship to those around us, to human beings around us? None of this can be learned without experience. And by experience, I mean, do you actually love those around you? The Prophet ﷺ spent time with everyone around him and spent intimate time with everyone around him to be able to learn their heart. He spent time amongst the poor. He loved the poor, right? And so I think while I can talk for hours about the importance of psychology as a science for us to learn and being able to integrate that with our conceptions within tasawwuf and within our Islamic spiritual psychology, I can talk about that all day. But I think a more important point, especially for those who are listening and want to study and want to learn, that, you know, I correct me, Sidi Ameen, or any of you, but I remember Imam Shafi'i, he said that we used to make dua for knowledge all the time. That was the dua that we used to make. And this is towards the end of his life. He said, I wish we made dua for taqwa and not knowledge, now that I'm in the end of my life. And so, you know, these sciences we have to use, not so we can go through theoretical gymnastics, but in order to learn how can we apply them. And that application doesn't come from, you know, taking it from the book and plug and chug. Like, life doesn't work that way. It's through mukhalata, it's through munadhara, it's through mixing and mixing with sincerity, learning, being empathic, listening with your heart about what people are going through. That is when these things become beneficial. Wallahu ta'ala.
Well done. Okay, it's very wonderful. And I would like to read questions from our online audience today. I think this is very interesting questions. Okay, the question is here. Soon we will celebrate Eid. Many Muslims in various countries have a lively tradition. Then how should Muslims celebrate it in the midst of this pandemic? Do you have any idea? Who goes first? Dr. Ameen, I think.
To make what could potentially be a long story very short, my advice to everyone listening, regardless of where you might be, is to obey your government's regulations. So if you are lucky enough to be in a place like Ohio where your regulations are about to be lifted, then alhamdulillah, you know, do what you can and what you are allowed to. If you're in a place like Cape Town, who is potentially going to have more strict restrictions than the rest of South Africa, then you have to adhere to the local regulations. Again, I think it's short-sighted of a lot of people to you know, take a little bit of what they've read on WhatsApp and you know, a couple of messages here and there, and try and come to an individual decision about what the decisions that the governments are making with regards to restricting movements are or are not beneficial in the long term. So that would definitely be my first advice, is adhere to your local regulations. If they allow you to move about, alhamdulillah. If they don't, trust that they've put in the necessary research and diligence that's required for the greater good of everyone. And there have been a lot of ways that that some people have creatively come up with regards to getting around the restrictions. In Cape Town, in particular, some people have said, well, nobody's allowed to go out of the house, so stand on the porch of your house on the front step and recite the takbir, make salam to your neighbor and wish them Eid Sa'id across the road. without embracing and touching hands and maintaining social distancing, and then go back into your house and observe Eid with your family. So there are ways that we can get around stuff. We have to make the best of the situation that we find ourselves in, and there's digital platforms such as this as well, where people can get together with their families, and I guarantee you, some people are going to actually see some of their families that they would normally not have seen visually on Eid because they're stuck at home and having to do these kinds of things.
Yeah, okay. You as doctor even tell the number of the suspected virus, the confirmed virus is show a decrease. Should we? Does it mean that the condition allow us to go to masajid? Do you have any recommendation, Doctor?
Again, that would depend on the local regulations. In South Africa, that is not the case because we're currently on the upswing of things. And let's not forget that until some kind of cure or a vaccine comes out, there's always the possibility that people can, that a curve that's been flattened or a curve that's on a downward trajectory where cases are decreasing can then start to increase again and get back onto the upslope of increasing number of cases. I've been very cautious about making a recommendation like that. I do see that a lot of masajid throughout the world have done some very innovative things in terms of trying to decrease the risk of transmission of COVID-19 between people. Things like screening people at the doors, things like social distancing in the mosque, not standing shoulder to shoulder, and people wearing masks and so forth. Each of these things are good, but nothing can be a guarantee. For instance, in the special thing about COVID-19, one of the specific things, which is why it's such a big problem, is you can be completely asymptomatic with COVID-19. So you can have no fever, no cough, or anything. So it's just screening a person with an infrared gun and showing them not to have any fever doesn't mean they don't have COVID-19. That's the first thing. Right. The second thing, Sidi, alhamdulillah, I'm sure everyone on this forum at the moment knows this, but not everyone does, and so that's the first thing. The second thing is, in the mosques, the virus can last on the carpets for very long. And so, just maintaining social distancing doesn't mean that someone else making sajda on the same spot later on in the day isn't going to contract the virus. And so I raised this point with some people, and they said, well, okay, we're going to make it mandatory that everyone must come with their musallas. And, alhamdulillah, if you can implement that. But I don't think that that's a solution that can be applied across the board, and certainly not in the poorer communities. If we suddenly, in South Africa in particular, I mean, the situation is different in other parts of the world. There are different points in the spread of COVID-19 and are different abilities to be able to implement these things. But in South Africa, that if we suddenly open up the masajid and say, these are our measures, it's not something that can be applied across the board. And I think that's something that we definitely need to be careful about.
Yeah, that's true. There is no quarantine from anyone when we get the virus or not, and we should be more carefully taking care of ourselves and don't take risks in this pandemic situation. And how about you, Imam Ahmad, Deeb? How will you celebrate your Eid there? Will you go to the mosque?
A lot of sleep, Shaykh. A lot of sleep.
A lot of sleep.
No. You can tell when Shaykh Ameen mentioned his advice for creative ways, to stand outside and greet your neighbor with social distancing and say takbir. You can tell he's speaking purely from Cape Town Muslim privilege, where most of us here in America, I can't come out. If I do that to my neighbor, I may get the cops called on me. No, I'm kidding. Alhamdulillah, we have beautiful neighbors here in Ohio. Some of the nicest people in America are in Ohio. But I'll tell you what we're doing at the masjid as of now. we're doing live stream. We're live streaming everything. We're gonna do some takbirat, and I'm going to recommend people to pray at home. And for those who want to follow the minority fatwa that allows for praying virtually, then to each their own between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And some are doing kind of creative, like they call them drive-bys, but then anyone who grew up anywhere would never use the word drive-by. Maybe drive-through, drive-through Eids, where some are having like food carts, and then you drive to the masjid, you stay in your car. Like, Shaykh Ameen mentioned, regulating these things are going to be impossible. And so it's better to err on the side of caution. And so even though the stay-at-home order is being lifted the 29th of May here, which is a little bit after Eid, we're still not going to open the masjid yet out of precaution, because we know that the moment the stay-at-home order is lifted, everyone's going to be out in the streets. And so there's going to be a high likelihood in another spike. But, we need to find, like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and sorry, this is the last thing I'll say. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like giving us opportunities to be creative. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is allowing us to reflect and be creative. And so, okay, well, now you have the opportunity to think of really, really creative ways to make things beautiful in Eid, to make sure that, you don't have to have like a tree or something, but make sure there's gifts that you are able, for those who are able to get gifts, and have a beautiful little outdoor your home environment for Eid. Call people, and this is what I was going to recommend for everyone, is that, FaceTime everyone that you love and say Eid Mubarak. This is all we can do. This is a test for us, but inshallah we'll get through it.
That's interesting. There is interesting term, drive to Eid. Yeah, maybe we can practice this method of celebrating Eid in this year. I would like to say thank you very much for Ani Ulansari who addressed these questions. And actually, the explanation from our brother Imam Ahmad Deeb about the celebration of Eid relate to our second questions from M. Aulanida. Thank you very much for your questions. The question is there no fatwa that restrict Jum'ah and Jama'ah in red zone, infected cities, and allow Jum'ah and Jama'ah in green zone? Maybe he means that there is a different fatwa in terms of the space, the different geographical space. How, Mohamed? Can you get the point?
Are we talking about like Eid Salah?
Yeah, I think not only Eid Salah but Jama'ah, praying together. Is there no fatwa that restrict Jum'ah and Jama'ah in red zone, but in the other side allow Jum'ah and Jama'ah in green zone? So different fatwa.
Oh, so can you pray like Eid alone? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe.
Or like virtually, is that the question?
Maybe the question is, I'm just trying to grasp the point. Maybe the question is, maybe for the Ohio states, the fatwa from ulama is allowing the Muslim to do a Jama'ah, Eid praying together in mosque, but in another states outside of Ohio, the fatwa is different in Ohio. Is it allowed in Islam? Is it okay in Islam? Something like that.
Oh, this is a broader question, a great question. Like, can you have conflicting opinions? This is a difference of opinion, not just different circumstances. Even though the stay-at-home order is going to be lifted in Ohio, you still can't have more than like 10 people at once or 15 people at once. So there's still going to be restrictions. I would say that we have to respect people's circumstances. And from one perspective, there are those who are completely neglecting any of these things, any restrictions, because again, I want to be at the masjid. No, discipline your nafs. and take what health experts like Shaykh Ameen are saying seriously. Okay, if it's dangerous, then no, we don't need to open the masajid. We have, alhamdulillah, the ability, especially for Eid. You can pray in the Maliki school. You can pray. It's mandub to pray alone. You know, and now we have fatwa that allow for prayer virtually if you want to abide by those. It's minority fatwas. I personally don't follow it, but they're there. So I think, again, my question, and I think it's a question for all of us, where is the rush coming from? What's the impulse? Okay, why am I rushing? Is it because of a fear of Allah, or is it because I'm just sick and tired of being tested? If it's the second, then no, actually, your greater reward is to stay at home and to not do a jama'ah, even if there is some leeway. Erring on the side of caution is always best, especially if we're going to preserve lives. This isn't like, you know, something small. It's not like you're going to get cut on your arm and you may potentially kill someone through irresponsibility. So I would say that, yes, we respect people's circumstances that may have a different opinion, but my stance is the same, that I would urge utmost caution, mainly because I personally do not see a rush that is founded upon clear guidance. I don't see the rush that is rooted in sound wisdom or principle. I think we need to err on the side of caution. Allah ta'ala alam, God knows best, but of course differences of opinion are a mercy, and we respect differences, valid differences, not just any person who screams conspiracy and says corona isn't a serious thing, we got to go and make salah, that's the only thing that's going to save us. This is, you know, these aren't ulama. We listen to valid opinions from scholars and experts, inshallah.
Yeah. I really understand why this question is comes up to you all, because in Indonesia case, now the fatwa from the ulama allows Muslim to do a praying together in a mosque, but under the condition the area or the region or the city is indicated as a green zone, not a red zone. But for those who live in the red zone area, the fatwa goes different. The ulama prohibits Muslim to go mosque to celebrate to pray Eid Mubarak Eid together in a mosque. I really understand.
Sorry, I think you made a really good point. I just wanted to touch upon it. I from my understanding is that the fatwa in Indonesia is for people who, you know, there are green zones and red zones, and so not every fatwa is. There's no one fatwa fits all. Yeah. But I'd like to make a small point, and maybe a little bit controversial, but khair inshallah. You know, one of the things the Prophet ﷺ taught us in a sound hadith, he says that استفتي قلبك وإن أفتاك الناس وأفتوك الإثم ما حك في صدرك استفتي قلبك وإن أفتاك الناس وأفتوك. In other words, we may exist, we may be in a circumstance or region, what have you, where a large-scale fatwa conflicts with our moral conscience, and I don't recommend that you do this in a place like Indonesia where you have amazing centralized ulama, right? But in places where there isn't really a centralized ulama, like maybe South Africa or America, you know, and there's a I use majlis. There's a group that says inside joke between me and Shaykh Ameen, you know, there's a group that says, you know, go ahead, you know, and we're giving you a fatwa and here are the dala'il, go ahead and pray in jama'ah. This is where, if our hearts inshallah are pure and we're doing it with sincere intention, then we consult our hearts despite what people may say. We have to use our moral conscience, especially in a time where that moral conscience inshallah can save lives.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much for your point, Imam Ahmad Deeb. Because our time is limited in these discussions, and it's approaching to end. I would like to ask one question more to Dr. Muhammad Amin Ali. We consider that there are many prediction and analysis to draw when this pandemic will end. Some say that it will never end, and we have to make a new adaptations with this pandemic. And as along with the term of a new normal life is still hype now, but some say that it will end soon and at the end of the years. From medical perspective that you expertise on, what you believe in this issue?
CD, my approach is always to answer the easy question first. So the easy question is it correct to say this will never end? No, that's not correct, right? So let's just dispense with that. Inshallah, like everything, this too will pass. How long that will take, I don't think anybody can give an answer on that. There are various experts that have taken educated guesses at how long we're going to be in this. Like I touched on earlier, the fact that even if you are on a decreasing number of cases, and my esteemed colleague Shaykh Ahmad touched on this as well, that now suddenly intermingling in an uncontrolled manner can result in a swing of cases increasing again. And China is very aware of this, in that there was just a cluster of 6 cases earlier this week, and they've embarked on some 10 million testings to make sure that there isn't a second resurgence of the case. Because, I mean, they're far ahead of the world in terms of experience in how to deal with this. And they know very well that you can have a resurgence. So the current thinking is that for as long as it's going to take for us to get some kind of vaccine or some kind of cure for COVID-19, for which there are multiple projects currently underway, some which are further ahead than others, we're going to have to adopt a new normal way of life. Right? I do believe in that, encompassing the principles of social distancing, encompassing the principles of increased hygiene and sanitation, which I think are going to be intuitively the new normal post-COVID-19 anyway. And with regards to how long it's going to take for those that vaccine A to be developed, B to undergo the stringent process of testing and validation to make sure that there aren't any untoward side effects, and thirdly for production, fourthly for availability, and fifthly for that availability to be rolled out to people, that's going to take a very long time. And some of the experts in South Africa are saying that that may go well beyond next year into 2022, to the point where the poorest countries can get access to that vaccine, and then that vaccine can be rolled out to the poorest of the poor people. Even until that happens, we're going to have to be wary and tread cautiously.
Okay, so we have to prepare now and be realistic in facing this pandemic, that this will never end soon, and we have to wait the vaccine, and we have to make a great adaptations for social distancing to increase our hygiene, cleaning, and something like that. And the last questions now for Imam Ahmad Deeb. Okay. We have known that you have been actively involved in some community services in the middle of this pandemic. What is the best contributions that millennials should do for the community? We have heard that the millennials or the youths mostly are perceived as the selfish people. Ignorance and individual stigma is closely related to the youths, including our Muslim youths actually. But I believe some may think that they want to give something to the community, but doesn't know how to do it. We have known you are very experienced in this kind of activity. So what's your suggestion for us, for our Muslim youths to keep contributing to the community? Start from where and how should we start?
MashaAllah. May Allah bless the person who asked for their sincere intention and reward them. I'm going to give you an answer that you're not going to like, which is, do what everyone is doing around you. Stick with your jama'ah. Look at efforts around you. Don't try to replicate them. Just support what other people are doing. Okay? This is Amr bil Ma'ruf. Part of Amr bil Ma'ruf is promoting that which is already there that's good. Okay? The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِيُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I've been sent to perfect good character, not bring it. Okay? Sometimes we feel like we have to be, especially this is a millennial maybe, and I'm kind of a millennial, so I understand this, that we want to like always bring something new. Well, actually, there's a lot of things that are there and that exist that need your support. I don't believe millennials are the selfish generation. I think that's as a misreading. Millennials are actually potentially the most powerful generation in the time that we live in now, because they can navigate both worlds. They can navigate what life was like a little before all of this iPhones and internet, and they know they're very quick with the iPhones and the Zooms. And so this means that as a millennial, if you're listening to this, you have the power of technology, but you also have the power of balance by knowing a different world. So you should use your skills to spread awareness, promote efforts that are doing great work. Community service is different depending on the circumstance, depending on the time, depending on where you are. Number one, the best service that you can give is your du'as for people. But I mean like real du'as, not like Allah, like forgive everyone. All right, thank you. No, I mean like you're actually pouring your heart out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And through that dua, God will give you an empathy and inspire you with what you need to do via the asbab. Okay? Because you will develop that empathy and emotional intelligence to know, okay, how am I going to actually apply this? So besides dua, number two, look at efforts around you. We have here in the masjid, we have an Islamic food bank that we opened for the city of Parisburg. Alhamdulillah, we were featured on the newspaper where everyone knows the Muslims because of the service that we provide to the greater community. So, this was an effort that existed. Feed people, as the Prophet ﷺ say, and I'll conclude with his words because his words are the best, is that, when he entered Medina and in establishing community, which is really when we talk about service, community is part and parcel. In establishing community, he said, Afshu salam, wa at'imu ta'am, wa silu al-arham, wa sallu al-nasaniya. That number one, spread peace. So number one is be a source of peace. If there's one thing that you can do that is the greatest service, don't fuel the fires of division and confusion and conspiracy. Be a source of peace to those around you. Part of that means min husni islamil mar'i tarku ma la yani. Meaning sometimes you just got to stay in your lane and not speak on things you don't understand. But then second, feed people. We should never underestimate the power of feeding people. And then the other two that injunctions the Prophet ﷺ gave was keep family tight and pray while others are asleep. So be a source of peace. Look at existing efforts around you and support them in whichever way you can, inshallah.
Thank you very much. That's a very important message for us, for the Muslim around the world, that firstly we have to spread peace first before we jump to our community. We have to understand the conditions, try not to fuel the fire in the community instead of including being involved in conspiracy theory, which is very dangerous for society's resilience. And I would like to thank you very much, Imam Ahmad Deeb. And I would like to close this discussion earlier, but this is one question live actually for Dr. Ameen Ali. I'm sorry. I would like to address this question to you as the last questions. How can South Africa have the smallest case of death, around 300, compared to America, which is shown number 90,000, and Indonesia 1,200. How can?
Where there is no concrete answer to this question. It's been something that's been puzzling my mind from the beginning. I mean, first of all, let me just get this part out of the way, that our mortality can't be compared to countries such as the USA, because we're quite far behind in terms of the total number of cases. So we're still in the 17,000 active cases of COVID-19, and the other countries are a lot more higher. So naturally, their mortality is going to be higher. However, South Africa has had a lower mortality compared to countries that have a similar number of cases. And we're not sure why that may be. There are a few theories. Some of them are that the BCG vaccine, which is rolled out more actively in South Africa, has conferred some sort of benefit in terms of making the disease less severe. And whether or not that is true, the jury is still out in terms of the evidence for that. But right now, so again, you can't compare us to countries that have a lot more cases, because naturally they'll have a lot more deaths. But why we are behind in terms of mortality comparing countries that have a similar number of cases, I don't know the answer to that. There are a few theories, but there's no answer as far as I know.
Yeah,
Because of good doctors like Shaykh Ameen.
No, that's not good.
Okay, actually, this is a question from Ustad Abror. Thank you very much for addressing these questions. And thank you very much for your time, for these fruitful discussions. My brother Imam Ahmad, Deeb, and Dr. Amin Ali, and send my warm regard to your father as well, Mr. Imam Ahmad Deeb. Let's close our discussion today by closing statement, closing remarks by which will be delivered by Ustad Abror Anyan Jahya as the director of Tebuireng Online. Time is yours, Ustad Abror.
Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for the great discussion and dialogue about Muslims' response toward pandemic, global pandemic. This is a global pandemic, and thank you very much to Shaykh Ahmad Deeb, Shaykh Abdallah Deeb, and Shaykh Abdullah Ameen. Thanks for your explanation and your discussion and your response about the theme. Thank you. I am from the representative of Tebuireng, and maybe I want to say thanks very much for all of speakers. It is a great discussion. It's this great dialogue. So many knowledge and so many benefit from this Zoom meeting. Thank you very much, Shaykh.
Okay, thank you very much, Abror, for your statement. Would you like to maybe lead us for dua to close these discussions? Then we can close it.
Okay, thank you. Ila hadratin Nabi Mustafa Muhammadin sallallahu alaihi wasallam ila jami muslimin wal muslimat wal mu'minina wal mu'minat wasairin nasi fil a'lam. Al-Fatihah. A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin arrahmanir rahim maliki yaumiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in ihdinas siratal mustaqim siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin amin. A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma shalli ala sayyidina Muhammad. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Allahumma ya Allah, Allahumma bihaqqil Fatiha wa sirril Fatiha ya farijal hammi ya kashifal ghammi ya man li'abdihi yaghfir wa yarham wa ya dafi'al bala'i ya Allah ya Rahman ya Rahim wa ya dafi'al bala'i ya Allah ya Ghaffar. Allahumma iftah lana abwabal khair wa abwabal barakah wa abwabal ni'mah wa abwabal quwwah wa abwabal rizqi wa abwabal sihha wa abwabal salamah wa abwabal afiyati was salamah wa abwabal jannah. Allahumma afina min kulli bala'id dunya wa adabil akhirah. واصرف عنا بحق القرآن العظيم ونبيك الكريم شر الدنيا والشر الآخرة وعذاب الآخرة. غفر الله لنا ولكم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم ادفع عنا الغلاء والبلاء والوباء والفحشاء والمنكر والسيوف والمختلف والشدائد والمحال ما ظهر منها وبطن، خاصة من بلاء فيروس كورونا من بلدنا وبلد المسلمين عامة، وخاصة من بلدان المسلمين عامة، إنك على كل شيء قدير. لي خمسة أطفي بها حر الوباء الحاتمة المصطفى والمرتضى وابنهما والفاطمة. لي خمسة أطفي بها حر الوباء الحاتمة المصطفى والمرتضى وابنهما والفاطمة. لي خمسة أطفي بها حر الوباء الحاطمة المصطفى والمرتضى وابنهما والفاطمة. اللهم تحصنت بذي العزة والجبروت واعتصمت برب الملكوت وتوكلت على الحي الذي لا يموت. اللهم اصرف عنا هذا البلاء هذا الوباء وقنا شر الداء ونجنا من الطعن والطاعون والبلاء بلطفك يا لطيف يا خبير إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم نور قلوبنا يا رب العالمين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وأدخلنا الجنة مع الأبرار يا عزيز يا غفار يا رب العالمين. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. حق سورة الفاتحة.
Thank you very much, Ustaz Abror, for your dua. This is the end of this discussion today. Thank you very much for the speakers. This is very fruitful, and hopefully we can find benefit, a meaning, useful insight and knowledge from this discussion that we can apply as a Muslim to face this pandemic in our daily life. Thank you very much once more, Shaykh Imam Ahmad Deeb, and also your father, Al-Mukarram Shaykh Abdallah Deeb. And also, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time for Dr. Mohamed Ameen Ali. Hopefully, you always, all of you always get a healthy condition, always being blessed by Allah till Yaumul Qiyamah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for these discussions. This is me, Emharis Pratama, as your moderator today. Thank you very much for your joining in this session. Billahi taufiq wa hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
You did an amazing job, Shaykh. Thank you. Thank you for having me. God bless all of you.
Thank you very much. It's such an honor to host all of you guys. Thank you very much.
See you on the other side, Shaykh Ameen.
Shukran, jazakumullah. Thank you so much.
We are approaching iftar. 5 minutes again.